That hit. All right, y'all. Sales Bro Pod, episode 1. We got Mr. J here. First time podcast guest, me being first time podcast host. Hopefully you guys are in for something halfway decent here. Jay, thanks for coming on.
Of course, man.
Appreciate you
excited to be here, bro.
What's that?
Excited to be here, bro.
Yeah, I appreciate you carving out some time within your busy sales guy schedule. I guess let's start out from the beginning, man. I know you're not one of those guys that's hopped on 10,000 podcasts and you're like sick of telling your story. So why don't we get like the overview of who Jay is, and then let's go from there.
Yeah, for sure. So like I tell everyone this whenever I have to like explain my story. I don't have like this intensive background on sales or anything really crazy, but the way I've always looked at it, or at least mainly like recently that I've really started looking at it more, is like every single person is in sales at some capacity or another, because sales at the baseline is all communication. So if you've ever had a communication with someone or ever had a conversation, you're halfway there, right? So a lot of my like experience beforehand was like, restaurant serving, bartending, customer service rep, stock boy, like all of these types of jobs that have pretty much nothing to do with sales. Like, yeah, some serving jobs have sales if you have to like sell the wine and whatnot, but I didn't really have to do that. So none of my jobs really pertain to sales, but they all pertain to communication. So fast forward to when I kind of like started Money Twitter, founded all of that stuff, because that's like where most of us, kind of got opened up into the online world of like money and shit like that. So I had known Cold Email Wizard for a while, and basically been following him, and I was just doing literally everything under the sun, like drop shipping, agency, lead gen, like you name it. I was trying everything and nothing was working. Probably because I just didn't stick with it long enough. Yeah. Anyway, so I hit up Daniel, Cold Email Wizard, and I'm basically like, hey, bro, like I'll freelance for you, like for whatever you need, right? Like whatever you need me to do, I'll do it for you. So essentially I kind of, was doing more customer service shit, back to kind of like what I was doing, but I was making money online. So do that for a little bit. And basically I'm like, all right, I think I can take this thing online, or this thing full time online. I just don't know exactly what to do. And that's when I started finding like the high ticket closing, high ticket sales, like all of that stuff. That's when I originally found it. And I was like, hey, bro, listen, like Daniel, I want to get into sales. I don't really know exactly what direction to take. Eventually, I will stop freelancing for you and probably go fully into sales because I think I can do it. And just a perfect case of perfect timing. He's like, bro, I have a coaching program that I'm dropping soon. Basically, he's like, if you go ahead and go learn sales, we'll train you, we'll get you all set up, like we'll ramp you up slowly and we'll get you into sales. And then fast forward a year and I'm the top closer for Client Ascension.
Sounds like a movie script, man.
Something like that, right?
Yeah, you're obviously not one of these like 17-year-old like high ticket closer guys, right? Like you've got a family, you're a little bit more established here. When you were beginning to freelance, and I don't know if you were freelancing for other people doing other things as well, but like your career, you're like 9 to 5, so to speak, or like the job that you were doing before, like were you on any kind of track to like get close to where you wanted to be, or is that why you started the whole freelance online money stuff?
So yeah, like there was like, I didn't know what I wanted to do, to be fair. Like I had played around with so many ideas, like a normal job. Honestly, the main thing that I was going to strive for was to be a teacher, because like I love teaching. I was always like kind of into that. But that's when I realized that teachers make nothing, not enough, at least to, like have a livable wage, have a family, and, kind of like have a situation where your wife's not working. Right. And that's kind of like where I was like, I don't know if this will work and I need to like find something. So that was kind of like where I was like, these dudes are making so much money online. Like there's got to be a way for an average dude like me to be able to figure it out and like break into the space. So I literally took whatever scraps I could get.
Did you
so
go
kind of how like?
I was gonna say, did you go the like traditional college route?
Not initially. Right. So initially I was like a stock boy. Like I was working at a grocery store. For people in the Southeast, it was Publix. Most people in the Southeast know that grocery store.
Yeah.
They like honestly great place to work in terms of like benefits and shit that you can do like moving forward. Like they have a great system for you to like become rich and have a good life. And that's honestly like what the path I was taking. So like I skipped college, didn't do college because I was just going to continue doing that and then like maybe be a teacher and kind of like work it into my schedule, work in college and stuff like that. But then I
Yeah.
had like a mindset shift at that job and I'm just like, dude, this legitimately fucking sucks. Like I don't like I think it's good because I'm getting these benefits, I'm getting stock benefits, 401k, like everything that you're told when you're like growing up are the things that you need in order to be rich when you're 65. So I'm
Yeah.
sitting here like this is golden. I have everything made. And
Yeah.
then like I said, there was that kind of like mindset shift of like, do I really have the next 40 years of my life to become a millionaire? Probably not.
Yeah. I know in like here in central South Texas, the equivalent, I guess, of Publix is like HEB. And there's a lot of people that take that route where they kind of climb the ladder, so to speak. And it's like, dude, you'll live well doing that. But you know, some people are just wired a little bit different. They just want to maybe get it on their own or get it a little faster. I think most
Yeah.
of us on this side of Twitter, and even like anyone who's probably going to listen to this, probably has a little bit of that in them. Um, so going back to like the freelancing, now you're to the point where you're like, you got the job and then you're starting to get that taste of like online money. What was like the switch that happened, like where you were like, okay, let me like explore other online money things, specifically sales. Like, why didn't you just lean into the work that you were doing, maybe with other people, charging more, stuff like that?
Yeah, the work I was doing was like customer service for like softwares. And like, don't get me wrong, like it was good money. I'm making money online just by, replying to messages essentially.
Yeah.
And that was cool. But for me, I probably like moved a little too quick and I quit my job. So like I was only doing the freelancing, right? So now I'm only making that money, which like I said, it's like good money when it's a side hustle, but it's not good money when you need income,
Yeah.
like when you need that like actual real money. So that was kind of like I had money saved up. I was like good. Me and my wife were secure essentially. So it was basically like, what can I do quickly to make money? And I had tried like the drop shipping, the agency stuff. Like I tried that stuff before. And I'm like, I know this doesn't happen quick.
Yeah.
Right. But I need something to happen quick. So that's when like I said, I saw the kind of like the high ticket sales thing and I watched like a webinar or like a YouTube, whatever the fuck I watched. I don't even remember what it was. And it basically broke down the process and like what you do as a high ticket closer, sales rep, whatever you want to call them. Right. And I was like, there's no fucking way it's that easy. I was like, there's no way it works like that. And I had to like, learn more. And then I
Yeah.
did my research, like most people do, probably still moved a little too quick in the terms of like, this is what I'm doing. Like that's just kind of how I've always been of like, I hear about something for 5 minutes. And I'm like, dope,
Yeah.
let's do it. So
Yeah.
that was kind of like, for me, I found it and I was like, you can make money quick,
Yeah.
essentially. That was in my head of what I was thinking. Obviously it doesn't always work like that.
Yeah. Dude, they make it sound so easy, bro.
Yeah.
They make it sound like send your Instagram DMs and next thing you know, 15K a month. You know,
Yeah, that was
some
my
people.
intention.
Yeah, yeah. That was kind of me too. I mean, I came at it from a little bit of a different angle. Like, I didn't think it would take as long to like get where I wanted to be doing it, but yeah, I like had tried everything else myself as well. The drop shipping, the email marketing, the copywriting, paid ads, everything, bro. Like I remember driving out of town to meet with realtors so that I could run Facebook ads for them. I drive out of town, the campaigns would be doing like terrible, bro. And I would like had no idea what the fuck I was doing, to be honest.
Yeah.
Um, but then I went the college route, had like stumbled into sales because I saw how much money they were making. And then I was like, all right, online sales. Cause I always wanted like online money, bro. I always
Yeah.
wanted it because like the location freedom, all that stuff, which again, most of the people who listen to this, they can relate. So one thing that I find like pretty interesting about you, and I think it's like we have kind of a similarity here, is like if I met you in person, I don't feel like I would immediately think that Jay is a sales guy. And I think it definitely works in your favor, and I think it works in my favor as well. Um, but I don't know, maybe like internally you feel like that is like easy for you, but can you elaborate on that, like not being the stereotypical fucking Chad sales guy, like what's
Yeah.
your experience been like kind of being a different style closer, I guess.
Yeah, I a lot of people tell me that, right? Like literally when I'm on calls with people, like at some point in the call, they'll just stop and be like, "This is not like any sales call I've ever had before." And I'm just like, "Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Like, how do you feel about that?" And they're like, "It's great. I'm loving it." Right?
Yeah.
Because my whole goal is to get people as comfortable and lower their guard as much as possible.
Yeah.
Right? So maybe it works in my favor, maybe it doesn't. I don't know. Maybe people look at me and are like, oh, this dude can't fucking close me. Like, no way he
Yeah.
can.
Yeah, I think it sneaks up on people. Like they're not expecting you to be a freaking assassin when they give you some objections, or ideally they're not giving you objections, right? Which is something we can talk about later.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, I think the more that like sales becomes a desirable, because people are like dissatisfied with like traditional education, like it's growing. I think
Yeah.
the more that people realize, man, you can make a lot of money in sales, whether it's door to door or like, you know, real estate or online or software, whatever. It's like there's so many people who you would never guess that would excel in that now excelling in it. And it's probably because of the reason that they're like a little bit different.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think it's super interesting because I have some other guests lined up. Obviously, I'm trying to do a weekly thing here. It's like so many different selling styles, man. Um, and I know even within like your team and like the network, like people are doing things every which way, but it all works for them. I think that's a super important point to stress, is that there's no one way. There's a bunch of ways. Just like making money online, it's like they all work. Just pick it,
Yeah.
lean into it, and yeah, do it for an extended period of time. You know,
For sure.
as long,
Yeah. No, and kind of like speaking on that of like how all people have different like styles, but it works. That's like one thing that I preach on a lot, and I can dive into that if you want, about like how I found my selling style and like what worked for me to like figure out like what works for me. I can dive into that if you want.
yeah. I guess I did want to ask you, like, who was the first person, or like, where did you get the first taste of like sales education, or just like who put you on?
So I mean, like if you want to say like Connor Sutherland and Dan Crawley, because they were like the closers of Client Ascension, so
Hmm.
they kind of like I knew what it was,
Okay.
and they kind of like opened up like heaven's doors to me, and they're like everything you know about sales at this point is wrong.
Yeah.
Like we're gonna coach you and teach you the right way, right? So that was kind of my first introduction, in general, to like the real way of selling, I guess you could say. But if we're talking about like the first person that I really like copied their selling style like to a T was Cole Gordon. Like
Hmm.
100%. I think he has one of the best sales processes in the game. And if you can learn that process to begin with, you'll be pretty well off. And then it's just kind of figuring out what works for you personally at that point.
Yeah, I agree. Like when new guys come to me and they're like, who do I study specifically for like the high ticket sales, remote kind of fast paced online stuff? It's like Cole Gordon is the guy that I will refer out, and Jeremy Miner too.
Love
So
Jeremy.
Cole Gordon, I think we were talking about that recently, like the Cole Gordon influence on what you do, and obviously working with the guys you do, there's some other influences that I think they're pretty similar. It's not like anybody is doing anything radical.
Right.
Um, but I guess I wanted to ask you, like, as far as selling in the specific industry, like how long have you been doing sales now for your team?
For client ascension, we are a week away from 1 year in total.
Nice. Okay, so
So
you've
pretty damn close to that full year. We'll
definitely,
say a year.
yeah, you've definitely pushed some good volume in that time, like specific to the kind of like B2B. Um, I guess that's y'all's niche, right? Like just anyone who does B2B work that can benefit from outbound systems, right?
Yeah, essentially. I mean, the main thing of it is like cold emailing pretty much works for anything B2B. So I mean,
Yeah.
we've taken on people from like all walks of like every type of business you can think
Okay.
of. Obviously, with some exceptions, we do have our own processes and stuff we go through.
Okay.
But yeah, I would say it's definitely like still B2B. There is some like B2C aspect to it, depending on who's on the other side of the call. But I would definitely say it's like B2B.
Yeah. So I know there's going to be some people listening to this who are definitely in that industry and maybe they're doing well, maybe they're not. Specific to like the types of people that you're selling with, like what are some of the biggest things, the I guess biggest realizations that you've had to come to, maybe some breakthroughs that you've had that really helped you like do better selling to these people?
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, I've just been like very good at reading people very quickly. Like I kind of have like a sense of who you are and what you want to do, how the call should be carried out, and like kind of the tone and the pace in which I should talk in. I find that out honestly probably within a minute of the call, like
Yeah.
very, very quick. And that's kind of like how, for me personally, like I adjust to them because the thing about B2B, for anyone who's done B2B and done it for long enough, you will get guys doing 50 million a year who are bang average dudes. Like
Yeah.
you can just have a conversation with them like we're doing now and there's no issue, right? But then you can also get a guy doing 10K per month who's a complete asshole. And it's like,
Yeah.
kind of the amount of curveballs you get in sales in general, kind of like how quickly you can adjust and like how quick you are on your feet in general is ultimately
Hmm.
kind of like what will make or break you in B2B, in my opinion.
Yeah. And I know one thing that I admire about you and some of the guys you work with is like such an abundance mindset to where if it's not a good fit, if you're being an asshole on the call, like I'm going to disqualify you. We don't need to work with you. How do you feel like, because there's some sales teams that if you start DQing people and you start not making offers, like you're going to get in some heat, you know? So do you feel like that kind of takes off a lot of the pressure of having to like perform on a day-to-day basis? Like,
So, I mean, to an extent, like obviously we're not like DQing everyone under like
right.
obviously, but I will say like in general, it's very important to have a sales manager. And in general, I guess you call them bosses, owners of the offer, whatever you want to call them. It's very important to have like those people trust you,
Hmm.
right? Because it's never like a situation of like we're getting like yelled at or like talked to. It's like, hey, what happened with this call? Why did it go that way? What can we do better next time? Right. And it's
Yeah.
never a situation of like, I feel nervous because I didn't close this call. It's like, I know I can go to them for help. So, in general, just having a good, I guess you could say like management team or
Yeah.
owners of the offer, whatever you want to call them, like having those guys trust you is one of the most important parts of the offer or like the process in general.
Yeah, you definitely like the sales team definitely has to have like a baseline level of competency to where you can do that. Because I've been on teams, man, it's like so B2C cutthroat. It's like every single day they're running through each rep's numbers. And if you didn't hit like one close the day prior, no matter the circumstances, dude, like no matter the leads, it's like you're in some shit, you know?
Yeah.
So the farther I get into like this online high ticket sales journey, the more I try to stay away from that kind of stuff. It's great experience because it teaches you exactly how to do certain things, and it also teaches you like what you do and don't like.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, now I mean, as we were talking, I'm in like B2B as of right now, and so far it's been a lot better. Like kind of like a little weight off my shoulder because I actually feel like, hey, 110% we're delivering on our service. And there's B2C offers that I felt that before. Some of them,
Mhm.
man, I mean, you know a lot of guys in this space. I'm sure you've heard some like crazy stuff. Some of them are
Bad stories.
ruthless. Yeah. So we talked about this actually like a couple days ago, but specific to you, like your industry, let's say, scaling B2B companies. You told me that the two objections that are like super big for you are timing and finances, right?
Correct.
And you gave me the breakdown, but I want to hear you do it here so that other people can be put on the sauce, man. How do you go about, well, I guess one, preventing, and then two, handling if they come up?
Right. So preventing is always the goal, right? I don't want to hear objections after I say the price. I don't want to deal with them. I want you to say yes or no. And 90% of the time, I want you to say yes, or 100% of the time, I want you to say yes, rather. Right. So preventing is my goal every single time with every single call I ever take. Right. So you can kind of get, like I said, and for me, it's all about feel of the other person. You can kind of feel where they're going to push back, or like if their tonality changed at a certain point. It's like all about just like listening to them. Right. They're going to tell you, like, whether they tell you directly or whether they tell you with their body language, their tone of voice, whatever it might be, they're going to tell you when they're uncomfortable, right? And then you can kind of pick up where their objections are going to be. But to prevent them, everyone has those common objections, right? Everyone has objections that they get every single time, right? So if you know what your objections are, handle them before you even have to do them, right? So for an example, like with the timing objection, you can kind of go into, hey, Dylan, I know you mentioned that you had a vacation coming up. Is this going to be something like where you want to start after the vacation, or would it make sense to get started now? Right. And that's kind of like, okay, so now he just told me that it's going to be, in a couple of weeks after his vacation. And then you just handle it from there. Do you want to go all the way to the end of the pitch? Do you want to just kind of end it and book a follow-up call when it makes more sense for them? Essentially, you're going to save yourself time and handle the objection before it comes up. Because once you say the price in your pitch, you have no leverage anymore.
Yeah.
Right. You have, like, if you go through the whole call and then that they're not going to close in a month or 6 weeks, like whatever situation they have where the timing doesn't make sense right then and there. If you go through the pitch and you go through the price, your leverage is gone. Right. Unless you did an amazing job and they're completely sold and their excitement and hype will last the next couple of weeks until they sign, chances of that are pretty low. Yeah. Right. So personally, I would always kind of like, push to a second call, see what makes sense, and kind of get the feel for the call in general. On the finances, it's a very similar situation of, kind of like qualifying them beforehand. Oh, how much is the business making? Business is making this amount. And if it's a low amount, what are the margins, right? Like, what are we looking at, right? And then just being like, kind of like pulling a Jordan and leveling with them. I'm going to level with you, man. This is not a cheap investment. Like, we're looking, in the 5-figure range. I just want to make sure you know that beforehand so I don't waste your time for the next 30 minutes throughout this call. With that being said, is that a deal breaker? And then we handled it right there. If he says no, then what is he going to tell me at the end of the call? Yeah. Right? If he goes into say he doesn't have money, but Dylan, you told me 20 minutes ago that, this would make 100% sense. So either your problem is that it's still the pricing and you weren't being truthful in the beginning, or it's a problem with the program. So with that being said, which one is it? Right. And then we're just kind of like walking them through the whole thing. And that's kind of how I go through it, at least preventing them. Because like I said, preventing is like the number one goal for me.
Yeah. And I know yours, like your specific offer, you said sometimes like it's primarily B2B. Sometimes it feels more B2C-ish. When it comes to like moving people along, like obviously B2B, sometimes there's genuine reasons as to why they cannot close on the call, assuming there's other parties or got to move finances or whatever the case is. Like, how do you make the determination on if you should try to dig in and push them into some sort of form of commitment on the call, or if it is genuinely better left off, like rescheduling for a later date? And I'm curious, like specific to what you do, because B2C, dude, they're going to go like cutthroat. I need the $20 deposit, man. I need to know you're committed. Like, how do you navigate that, being that like your client or the leads that you're speaking to, they're kind of all different?
So it really depends on like what the actual issue is and what the reason is for pushing it out. And honestly, like, and it's unfortunately, it's just not something I can like, teach to people, is how to read people quickly.
Yeah.
But like I said, man, you can just feel, and I don't know if it's just me. I don't know if everyone gets this. You can feel when someone's telling the truth, man. I
Yeah.
don't know. You just like, you can feel it on the call that this person's being honest with me and it makes sense. Now, if their objection or their reason doesn't make sense, I am going to push back and like be like, hey, like, can I get a little bit more clarity on that? Because I like, from what you're saying, it doesn't make sense as to why you want to wait, right? So like I said, yeah, it's very situational based. Like for an example, a guy was going through a divorce. I'm not gonna fucking sit here and hard close him for the next 15 minutes to,
Yeah.
do that. Like, go handle your stuff. We'll talk in 3 weeks when that's all done. You know what I'm saying? So it's very
Yeah.
situational based. I play with it.
Yeah, dude. I think whether you are Chad sales guy or whether you are like people don't even realize you're a sales guy, one of the friggin' most valuable skills is to just like be able to read a person and their situation. And that's something that, dude, you can't teach to somebody. Like you can tell them, like pay attention to how they say this or how they respond or if they're hesitant or whatever. But I think that the main difference between like sales guys that are just really good at what they do and sales guys who maybe they're on a good offer and they do good and they can capitalize when it's not like super difficult. But being able to like read a room, read the situation, it's one of the most like valuable things. I also want to bring this up as far as we talked about this the other day too. How you practice, man. Like I talked to a lot of sales guys, and I think you have a super unique way of going about it that I actually think other people have like taken that and started to implement. And I think they're seeing results.
Yeah.
So like, what's your process, just so the listeners can know your process for like getting better?
Yeah, I'm actually like very curious at the percentage of people who hear my process that will actually do the process, because it's fucking not easy.
It's not easy. It takes a lot of
uh,
time.
it's an unbelievable amount of time, but like in my eyes, I was so behind everyone else that was like next to me in sales. Like I was selling next to Dan and Connor, who both have like 3 years experience on me. Like I had to tighten up and I had to get better somehow, right? So like everyone talks about reviewing your calls and like, going through, watching your call recordings and reviewing them. That's kind of like a known thing of how to get better, and like how, like, it's like any NFL team or any, sports team. You're going to watch game tape to see where you can get better and whatnot, right? So for me, I notice a lot of people when they do call reviews, they're just like this, like playing on their phone while they're listening to the call, and it's like what the, like you're not fixing anything. I don't know
Yeah.
what's going on. So I just went to the complete extreme, and I probably did this for 6 months straight. Like I would say I probably didn't do it every single day, because it, again, my process takes a very long time, but it pays off. So like I said, people review their calls. What I do is I purposefully open up the Loom recording and get the call recording up, and I want to record my face. And the reason I want to record my face is because it just feels more real, and also I'll pay more attention. It just kind of gets you more in the mode of like, all right, I need to pay attention to what I'm doing right now, rather than playing on your phone or doing whatever the fuck else you could be doing, right? So then I would, go through my calls, and I'm looking for a couple of things. What did I do right, and how can I replicate that? What did I do wrong, and how can I eliminate that? And then at the same time, what did I do wrong, and how can I turn it into something good? Because there will be times when you're watching your calls and you're like, that was fucking good, keep that shit in there, right? And you'll be like, that was bad, that needs to be completely removed, right? And then there are times when you'll ask a question, it's a good question, but you worded it wrong. Right. So like I never one, just for like a small example of that is like oftentimes you'll have people say, "Oh, Dylan, you mentioned earlier in the call that, this is da da da," right? I hate saying you mentioned. You're like, no, you said it. You said that. Be direct with them, right? So that's kind of like, and honestly, those are the little things that I fix, right? Like
Yeah.
in my sales process, those tiny like one word that I don't fucking like, I'm taking out and removing, right?
Yeah.
So now to like the actual process, I'm watching the call, and after every single sentence, I am pausing the video and going through that sentence individually to figure out if that's how I wanted it to come out. Very long process.
Yeah,
Takes me
bro.
like 2 hours per call if I do the whole thing. I've gotten to the point now where I can listen and I know what I'm listening for. I've gotten
Yeah.
to that point where I am kind of the guy who like sends an email while I'm listening to my calls. But for those 6 months doing that anywhere between 3 to 5 times a week, it's kind of hard not to get better.
Yeah. You had to have at least been listening on like 1.5, 2x speed, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Dude,
I'm not that savage.
yeah. I mean, I'll listen to my sales calls back, and I've listened to a bunch of them, but never like it never crossed my mind to literally go that in depth. The only time I've really had a sales call picked apart is like when I was working with somebody else, like a trainer or a coach or someone, and we're not even going that deep. So like to any of the guys listening, if you want to get better, put your fucking phone down and go line by line and put your face on the screen and like do the hard work, bro. Because obviously it makes you better, right?
Right. And that's also another thing, like real quick on that, like if you don't have money for sales training, you have to do that, right? Like it's as simple as that. Like the easiest way to get better is to pay for sales training and have someone better than you do that for you. But like you just said, not every sales trainer is going to do that because it takes way too much time, right?
Dude, especially, I mean, if the sales trainer wants to get compensated at a fair rate, like for them to do a deep dive like that where it takes 2 hours for one call, like bro, you're going to be out of pocket some nice money to get that kind of feedback. So what do you tell people who hate watching their call recordings?
Oh man, no, don't say that to me. Don't tell me you hate watch. You're by yourself in your room. Watch the damn call recordings. You know what I'm saying? Like no one's gonna see that recording of you doing it. No one cares. Like, dude, believe me, it's cringy. Like there are times where I've literally almost punched a computer screen because I'm like, that was fucking terrible. like you know what I'm saying? So like, dude, like that's the type of shit where if you tell me that, not gonna make it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think anybody watches the call recording, good or bad, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm so good at this. Like, I feel so good watching this." Like, even if it was a good call, like it's just something about watching yourself for that long. I had it, and I was working with David, and I remember like it's super nerve wracking. And I had this before to some extent, but like having your call blown up in front of the whole sales team, dude. You got to hope you did good on that one, because if you didn't, like, oh, dude, you're not going to hear the end of it.
You will not, bro.
But dude, it gets you better. It gets you like it helps you so much. I wanted to ask you. There's a lot of people out there giving sales advice, following different principles and all that stuff. What is something that is like common? I guess common advice that you feel like is not correct, like, or something that you feel like maybe they're misguiding, or it can be like just taken the wrong way and it's not as effective as they make it out to be.
Yeah.
Is
So
there
there's
anything
a
that comes to
big
mind?
one. There is a big one that comes to mind for me. And people disqualify in the wrong way. And what I mean by that is people want to be that sales Chad guy, and they think by being a sales Chad guy, it means by being an asshole, which is not true, right? Like if you're going to disqualify someone, people always say, "Oh, you got to disqualify hard and disqualify, get them off the call." Da da da. Like, yeah, that's all true. You don't want to waste your time. You don't want to waste their time either, and you do want to get them off the call if they're not a fit. But the thing that everyone misses out on in terms of disqualification is if they are someone who can be a fit for what you are selling down the line, give them a plan to get there.
Yeah.
Right. So for an example, if someone comes on the call and they're like, "Oh, I'm just trying to start an agency. I haven't really, done anything yet. Like I'm still trying to work towards it." I would be like, "Yeah, bro, like completely understand. Like a lot of people have been in your position before. I'm going to be honest with you, completely blunt, because I'm sure you want that. As of right now, it probably wouldn't work out inside client ascension. I'm just going to be completely honest. I think it's too early. But what I think is a good path, if you want just kind of like a little bit of value, is go check out some free stuff on YouTube. Figure out what agency you want to build. When you want to join like a paid group, go over to Internet Money from Cold Email Wizard. It's like $50 a month and you'll get tons of value, right?
Yeah.
Create a plan for them. Give them a little bit of something to go on. I've done that countless times. Have I made a shit ton of sales over it? Not a shit ton, but I've made enough to make it worth my 5 minutes of giving them a little bit of a roadmap.
Yeah. I mean, for the short time that I've been really like taking volume on B2B, like that's what I've come to realize is like, unless it's just completely out of left field, like there's a good shot if you give them a roadmap and they like keep doing or, you know, keep like trying, right? Not keep doing what they're doing, but like trying new things and all that. Like they'll be back in 6 months and they'll buy from you. So I think that's super good because it's kind of a meme. It's kind of a joke. It's kind of not, but there is, especially on our corner of Twitter, like a lot of people glorifying the disqualification in a way that like us who like maybe we've been selling a little longer, like more advanced, I guess you could say, like we know it's a joke when people are like making memes about disqualification, but these new kids, like I don't know if they 100% understand like, and there's some guys out there and I think it's entertaining, but I don't know if they can like decipher that some of this is sarcasm and some of it is not. So that's actually super valuable. What is something that you do like on your sales calls that you feel like works really well for you and it's not something that you see or have seen other people do? Like it's just kind of like your own little thing that works well.
I wouldn't say necessarily only I do it, but like one of the things that I don't really see people do enough is taking notes on your sales calls. Like I don't know if this is only me. I know David does it. Like I've seen David take literally a page of notes on his calls and he closes at a high level because of that, right?
Yeah.
But like people, I've seen it too many times when I've like done call recordings is people will like have someone who's rambling, talking a lot, you know, going through all these things like after they've asked a question and they're like, oh, I can ask that question. I can ask that question. That's a good question. By the end of the time the person's done rambling, you have 15 questions in your head and then you get flustered, you get confused. You're like, I don't know which direction to go now. And then you end up just like following your script and staying surface level the entire call. Right. So for me, I take notes and it's like, oh, okay, they said that they're doing this right now. Cool. And they said that they'll probably need help on that. Cool. And I just get my thoughts organized. Right. And then I can kind of take a second and be like, cool, this is where we're at. That's the direction we're taking the call. Yeah. Right. And then it just flows from there. So personally, just taking notes just helps me stay organized on the call. And I think that's kind of an underrated tip.
Yeah. I found myself doing this. Like I've always been a note taker, sometimes more than others, but I did find myself at one point, I felt like I was taking too many notes to where it was pulling me away from the actual conversation. And then I found myself like, dude, I would have literally not a page, but a lot of freaking notes. And then at the end of the call, like they hadn't closed and I just had all these notes on this person that like, what good is it now? You know? So I felt like I had got to the point, this was a while back, where I was taking too many notes. I was like not in the conversation. So when you do notes, I assume you're going just bullet points, maybe some question, like if they're kind of rambling on, like you're writing a little question mark. So you remember to ask. Any certain way that you structure your notes?
No way that anyone can copy. Because the way I write my notes is they're more reminders. Right. So it's not like Dylan needs help with lead gen. He is currently booking 3 calls per week. He needs, to book 10 calls per week. And then we're going to like, it's not like that. It's literally like if someone's like, oh yeah, I have a partner. And then they continue rambling on. I'll literally write the word partner with a question mark. Yeah. And that's it.
That's good.
Just to remind me that I need to go back to that because that's an important part that I need to ask. My notes, like if someone were to read them from my notebook, right? Like in my CRM, I have a full written, like paragraph for each person, right? But like on my actual like piece of paper next to me is like one word with question marks with some numbers on them, just because it's like instant reminders of like, I need to ask that, I need to go to that, that's what I need to do. And also it works for like follow-up. right? Of like,
Yeah.
okay, I know they're struggling with this or, whatever it might be. Like I just use notes for like literally anything I need to remember throughout the call. And I try to keep them as short and concise as possible. That way,
Mhm.
like you said, you don't get bogged down or caught in the weeds of them.
Yeah. One thing that I've done across multiple offers is like before a call, I'll always do a little pre-call research, assuming it's like warranted. And then
Mm-hmm.
I'll write short, I'll write like Gen for short for general,
Yeah.
goals, struggles, and EXP for experience.
Mm-hmm.
And I try not to move past my discovery until I have 3 bullet points within both the goals and the struggles. So that way, by that point, I probably have a good feeling of, some potential objections that maybe, might come up if I don't handle them before the pitch. But that's worked pretty well for me across a few different offers. Um, so I want to ask you now. I'm sure you got some funny stuff, and I feel like you've probably shared before, but like top of your mind, man, what's like crazy thing that's happened to you on a sales call? Like something out of left field.
Yeah, so I was actually talking about this with someone the other day because they asked a very similar question, and this same person comes to mind every damn time. Like everyone's had like weird calls where it's like, all right, that's weird, and we'll just move on from it and never remember it again. This was like the most memorable fucking call I've ever had in my entire life. So open up Zoom, I'm on the call, I'm waiting for him to get in, and he gets in, and he's no shirt, just a robe or like a silk type robe, and like in this basement, not a finished basement, dark as fuck, just smoking a blunt, like a joint or a blunt, whatever it was, right? And I'm
Yeah.
like, huh. I'm like, where are you calling from? He's like, Colorado, and I'm like, no shit. So yeah, it was one of those calls where it was real weird, and yeah, it didn't really go anywhere because
Yeah.
yeah, dude was high out of his mind the whole call, so obviously I wasn't gonna get much out of that.
Yeah. Dude, that like brought up literally yesterday, and this has happened before, but when people like show up to sales calls like smoking cigs, it's happened to me a few times, and they're always European, bro. They're always European. I don't know what it is. Um, but to me, that's kind of like it's kind of like, bro, like, can you wait? Like, we're talking to someone. Like, do you get that same feeling? It's like you need it that bad right now on our sales call, like, or is that just
Yeah.
me that kind of like gets irked by that?
I don't know if I get irked by it because I also like I don't rip the vape on the call. I will never like be ripping vapes on the calls unless they do it first. So if someone
That's
pulls up on the
funny.
call and they're smoking a cigarette, I'm like, hey man, I'm just gonna join you and let's have a conversation. It
Yeah,
almost makes it like an in-person meeting, like you're at a bar or something, smoking a cig and like having business conversation. So I try, like for me, I like I said, I match them as much as possible in terms of like tonality, speed of like which they're talking, body language, and like honestly what they're doing physically. And if that's
yeah,
smoking, cool for me because it works for me.
yeah, yeah. I've never been big like vapor, like
Yeah,
vape smoker
don't. That's
guys.
bad.
Never done it on the call. I wanted to ask you too, if you could go back and tell yourself like one tip or piece of advice from like your current self to your former self before you got started in sales, like what would you tell yourself?
Oh man, that's a tough one. And honestly, the reason it's a tough one, and I don't know if this is gonna sound like fake or not, or like what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of like typical. I don't know if that's the word for it. Cheesy. That's probably a good word for it. I don't regret anything in my sales career so far. It's not even a situation of like where I like wish I started sooner because I don't know if I would be in the same situation if I started sooner. So like there's not much to tell myself. Honestly, I think one of the things I would tell myself is honestly probably like get actual paid sales training because I never have. I've always gone like I've just had people kind of like around me who have helped me. I've never directly paid for sales training. I think that ultimately would have made it a little bit quicker, but ultimately kind of a shitty answer, but I don't really have anything.
Yeah. No, That's fair. I mean, I think everybody who like sees some success, whether you're in sales or whatever, it's always the easy answer is, oh, just start sooner, right? Like
Yeah,
that's
and
I
for
tweeted
me,
that the
it's
other
like,
day.
yeah, no,
I
I saw that. I saw that.
Some of these guys too, man, where they come in and they're like literally 16, 17, 18. Because I got in the community, there's a lot of like younger dudes like who maybe
Yeah.
caught a glimpse of YouTube video or online money, and here they are now. But man, if these young dudes can like work their way up over a year or two, crack the code, and then they're like 20 years old making kind of nice money, dude. That's like I wish I would have been there. I was like 20, 21, 22 when I started, and before that, bro, like I tried fucking everything, like online and offline, bro. I was mowing yards and doing all this, mowing
Yeah.
yards and making tables and crazy like pressure washing and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So I don't know, dude. I especially in the community, I try to like really help these guys out where I can, and you do too, dude. And I appreciate that. Like
Yeah, of course,
you,
man.
I know you've hopped on calls with some guys, and you'll come in and you'll host some like, or you'll be super
Yeah.
active in the live calls. But yeah, I think that's one super valuable thing about not just community, but like this corner of Twitter is like, dude, you have access to the guys who are doing exactly what you want to do. You just have to like get in the right spots, you know?
Yeah, yeah, dude. I tell everyone, I'm like, dude, you just have to position yourself correctly, but you're
Yeah.
never gonna know what's correct until something sticks.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate, but gotta do it.
Yeah. And I would say, I think you're a really good example of this. Like in this high ticket sales stuff, the like, I guess most rewarding way that you can get started is just by like having a good network. Because all the best opportunities that I've had came through, like I wouldn't have found them without knowing the people that I know. Like right now, both things that I'm working on, like through people that either I was introduced to or whatever the case. Sure, you can go on like the Facebook groups or submit your application along 100 other people, which I've done plenty of times. But bro, the network is everything, especially because
Yeah,
the online sales stuff, bro. It's so like secluded, you know.
yeah, yeah.
Like if you didn't have your sales team and you didn't have your friends, your online friends, you just be like at your little desk all day, taking your little calls, and it's like you have a bad day, bro, and it gets rough. It gets rough if you don't know anyone. So
I was gonna say, I think we've all been there too.
yeah,
Like I said, I've only been in for a year, but I mean, even in that year, I've hit a couple of like dry patches where it's just like, fuck, man, how do I get out of this?
yeah,
But that's kind of where good salespeople and great salespeople kind of get separated, because if you let it get to you, you're fucked.
yeah. So that's a good question. You being like you don't have some crazy extensive sales experience yet. You're good at what you do. How do you navigate that? How do you get out of the rut, so to speak?
It's one of those things that you just have to understand you can't prevent it. There's absolutely no way to prevent a rut because it happens to literally everyone, right? Go talk to any salesperson ever in the history of sales, and not a single one of them would have like consistently stayed at the same close rate or the same amount of revenue. Like it's a roller coaster. It's like
Yeah,
with business, it's the same thing as business. There's ups and downs in business, there's ups and downs in sales, and the way you handle the down points is like going to determine how you do in sales. For me, it's kind of like what you said, just having that team around you is super important. And honestly, like you don't even need a team. Like let's say you don't have a team that you're super close with. Find a community like Dylan's that can support you, and like there are people in there all the time posting like call recordings and like just needing kind of support and asking questions and stuff like that. Like if you don't have that, you have to find a community, because honestly, if you try to like go through those downs 100% on your own, unless you just got it, you might not make it.
yeah. Yeah, because I have a lot of guys come to me too with that stuff, and they're always like, "Dude, what do I do?" Like, I'm kind of freaking out, and in the back of my mind, it's like, "Bro, this is probably not the advice you're looking for, but just keep going, just keep going, because this is
Yeah,
normal."
yeah,
Especially like that bro, that first like 1 or 2 times where you kind of have a dry streak, you're like, holy shit, like maybe I can't do this.
Bro,
And then you get to the point where you've been doing it for a while and you're just like, oh, like this is what it is, but I know, next week it's going to be a different story.
Yeah.
So
no, exactly.
I think that is something that definitely comes with time. I think that's also like it's a rite of passage. Like if you're really in this sales shit, like, and you haven't had a rut, like, are you really in this sales shit?
Or are you just a god?
Yeah. So, shoot, man, is there any other like topics or pieces of advice that you think would be helpful to, I mean, new sales guys, potential, agency owners, business owners, these people on this corner of online money Twitter, I guess?
Yeah. Kind of like what we were talking about earlier, like your network is going to be super important, especially in sales. Like, I don't care if you're introverted, extroverted, you need to be like just connecting with people, right?
Yeah.
You don't like just connect with them, let them know who you are, like have fun with it, like meet people. Like it'll help you out so much. That's probably like one of the biggest things is like I don't want to say like that typical saying of like your network is your net worth, but to an extent it is, right? To an extent. The other piece of advice I would give in kind of more general to sales in general would be kind of like sales is human to human. We've heard that all the time. People talk about that all the time. So the best way to sell like a human is sell like yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's not easy because some people take it way too literal. And then they're going to start doing dumb shit on the call, or they're going to be annoying on the call. Some people take that too literal. So the best piece of advice I can give, and this works if you've been in sales a long time, if you've been in sales, no time, find someone you resonate with. For me, that was Cole Gordon. That was, Dan Crowley, Connor Sutherland. Like those were people that I resonated with. And like, I'm like, I like the way they sell. I think I can replicate that. So what I did was replicated, Cole Gordon's sales process, took a little bit of Connor and Dan's and, took it for myself. And that's how I sold for the first couple months, was just using other people's styles. Mm-hmm. But if you want to get better, if you want to kind of get to that next level, you're going to have to start replacing things that don't work for you specifically. Cole Gordon's style and his whole process that he coaches and teaches is the absolute perfect selling style for Cole Gordon. Can you replicate it? Yes. Will the whole process work for you every time? No, because it's not yours. So that's kind of like where it comes back into play of reviewing your calls. Okay, cool. I watched this whole call. That's exactly how Cole Gordon does his calls. That's the whole process. But what part of this process doesn't work for me? Right. So if you were to watch one of my calls, you would hear Jeremy Miner, you would hear Jordan Belfort, you would hear Cole Gordon, you would hear Alex Hermosi, you would hear all of these guys and so many of them, because I've just crafted of what works for me and made it my own selling style, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Those are like the guys that I have like it's not just one guy. Like you're going to hear things from different people and stuff that like you've learned just from selling what you sell.
100%.
Right.
Yeah.
How long do you think it took you? And obviously like you were starting from kind of like ground zero as far as sales goes, but how long do you think it took you within your specific offer to like really ramp up to the point where you were like, this is my fucking offer now. Like I can sell the shit out of this.
Probably close to 10 months. Or not 10 months, 8 months rather. Probably around like I started in February, and don't get me wrong, it wasn't like I was not putting up numbers, right? Like I was still fucking selling the shit out of this thing throughout the whole time, but it wasn't anywhere near it where it's at now, right?
Yeah.
Like, some of the numbers I'm hitting now, even I'm fucking like, how the fuck is this happening?
Yeah.
So like, probably in, I don't want to like hype them up too much, but one of the like biggest shifts for me was competition, because I'm naturally like a very, very competitive person. And at the time, like it was me and Tyler on the team. And me and Tyler, we talk shit every now and then, but it was nothing crazy, right? One specific person came into the team and disrupted everything because he wanted to make it competitive, right? And obviously this is David. And David came right for me because at that moment I was still like the highest closing sales rep. Like I said, I was never bad at this. I just wasn't where I wanted to be. So
Yeah.
David came in and just started talking shit. Unbelievable amounts of shit about me, about the like everything I was doing, right? And David
Yeah.
blew me out of the water. I mean, like absolutely destroyed me, like in his first month on the offer. And I was like, that needs to change. That was like a big mindset shift for me, was like, I am nowhere near where I need to be. Right.
Yeah.
So then me and David obviously became friends. It wasn't all us talking shit and, like making fun of each other. And David kind of helped me get to that next level, just from honestly the competitiveness. And he did help me a lot, hopped on calls with me, reviewed my calls, like that sort of stuff. So he helped me a lot. But yeah, it was probably from February till about October, maybe September-ish, anywhere between like that August and October range is really where I finally like kicked into gear and like started seeing numbers that didn't even know I could
Yeah.
hit.
Yeah. For those of you who don't know this David gentleman yet, Jay and I have both gotten to know him pretty well. Probably Jay more so than me by a lot, actually. But he is actually booked to come on. So later this month, like you guys are going to see exactly this guy. He's a funny guy and he's really freaking good at what he does. And I'm excited to have him. I guess we're kind of running up on our time here. Any like last minute stuff you'd like the people to hear today?
I honestly, man, just kind of like, if you want to get into sales, make sure you want to get into sales. Do your research and understand the pros and cons, because people do not talk about the cons enough. Yeah. Everyone wants to push the pros, the Lambos, the G-Wagons, the Brickell Miami, like all of that shit. People want to push that because they want you to buy their product and buy their sales training, which is cool. That's fine. That's great. Like you can have a really good life with sales. I mean, I'm fucking doing it now, right? Like I'm living a pretty good life from a year's worth of experience, right? But you have to understand the cons before you get into sales, because if you don't, you're going to get hit pretty hard.
Yeah. Yeah, man, it's a way of life. And it's a pretty good one too, if you find the right vehicle. And I would tell people, like, dude, if you don't see yourself doing this for at least like a couple, maybe a few years, like if you're looking for like that quick money so that you can start drop shipping or whatever, like, bro, just go get a job, go to the grocery store and bag groceries.
They don't realize,
because man, it's
have
like
to learn to like get to that high level.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a few years in myself and it's like I still get better and better and better every day. You'll never be done learning in sales ever, because the situations and the offers they always change, bro.
I say that, dude, there is no way, like you will, exactly what you just said. Like there is impossible to become like the person that can't learn anymore in sales. Like there are always different tactics because it's so free flowing that you can pretty much do whatever you want. And when something works, it's like, I just figured out a new fucking technique. Right. Yeah. And that's another thing. Have fun on your sales calls and test shit.
Yeah. And not to mention, man, sales, like the same sales that we're kind of doing now 10 years ago, it probably looked a lot different. So 10 years from now, it's going to look a lot different. The only way to like perform is just to keep going. Like don't start and then stop and then start and then stop. Just like show up and do it every day. So
yeah,
I guess last thing, Jay, I know people are going to want to find you. Let the people know where to find you. And also, I know you are working on some stuff with David to help people out. If you want to mention that, man, now's your time.
Yeah, so Twitter is Decristofaro J. Just at Decristofaro J. That's on Twitter. That's where you can find me mostly. Feel free to like DM. My DMs are always open. I'm always willing to help people. And yeah, me and David are working on a little sales coaching program. Basically you'll do a month with me, a month with David, and then we'll place you, get you set up on an offer and get you selling. Called Surgical Sales. We'll be rolling that out pretty soon, getting that kickstarted, getting that going. But yeah, other than that, those are the two things I basically work on. And if you are an agency owner and want to start growing your agency, you can also hit up Client Ascension. You might be able to talk to me or get
Dude,
closed by me rather.
yeah, I hope Cole Gordon and Daniel are paying you for all this like preaching you're doing. But anyways,
Yeah, I wish too, man.
yeah, I'll plug like if all the links. We'll plug it below the Twitter at and all that stuff. But no, man, I appreciate you coming on. First episode, Sales Bro Pod. First time host, first time guest.
Yeah, man.
I think it went pretty good.
Absolutely, bro. Yeah, I think that went well.
All right, man. Well, I appreciate you. I'll catch you later.
Absolutely, bro.
Later.
I don't know if you have